got to be willing to endure that. Just, step aside, move forward, look at it for what it really is. There's obstacles always in the way. If you're on the earth and you don't have problems, you probably don't have a pulse.
All right, folks, welcome back to the High Voltage Business Builders Podcast. I'm honored here today to have a gentleman who you may have heard of. If not, you've probably heard of one of the people that he's coached, from Tony Robbins to others, and books that he's working on right now with Kevin Harrington. We're going to get into all of that. I'm going to welcome my guest today, Jim Britt, not Jim Britt. Get your name right. People slaughter my name all the time, man. So hopefully you won't take that personally. Welcome you to the call. We're off to a great start already, aren't we?
Well, it's great to be here. So thanks, Neil.
Jim, tell me a little bit about the 6 traits of unlocking the code of wealth and cracking the code that you think you've spoken on and that you know so well as a person and as a business person who's done this yourself.
Yeah, I discovered this at age 22 or 3, somewhere around there, but I didn't know I discovered it at the time. I started applying these things, and later I was interviewing 12 mega millionaires. They all had to be worth at least 200 million. They all started with nothing. They were all in different industries. One was a billionaire. At one point, he was the 23rd richest man in America. And after about the 3rd interview, I realized that they all were sharing the same traits in different ways, but yet they were expressing them differently, but they all had these same traits. And it was throughout the whole 12 that I interviewed, pretty much almost right on target. So I'll go through them pretty quickly here, but trait number 1 is, I think we all have, and that's a desire to have something more in our life. Whether it's more money or a better relationship or, more time, or we want more of things in our life. So if you just take money, for example, pretty much everybody desires to have more money. I mean, even you find a billionaire, they're interested in going to 2 billion, and somebody making 100,000 a year wants to go to 200,000. Or
everybody wants more.
Always. They do.
Always.
You could go on any street corner in anywhere in the world and probably find 1,000 people, 100%, all of them wanted to make more money. So desire is not enough, but it does start with that. I mean, if you flat out just don't have a desire to do anything, nothing's going to happen. So you got to have that fire burning inside. The second thing, which I think some people think they do it, but a lot of people do it halfway. And you have to take that desire to a decision. And the decision, when you make a decision, it determines how you show up to the world. And it also determines how the world shows up to support you. So it's a mindset that you have. And people feel that mindset. When you're around, when I'm around Kevin Harrington, for example, I don't have to ask him how much money he's got, or if I'm around Tony Robbins, you feel that mindset. And so people are going to support you based upon that. So if you've got a mindset that, well, let's look at it this way. Let's say a decision is this circle right here, a full circle. And that's a decision that doesn't allow for anything less than that.
Yeah.
But most people leave a little opening just in case. That's their escape route. That's their excuse as to why it didn't work.
The excuse clause, the out,
exactly.
Right?
That's their out clause. So you can't have an out clause. People say, well, I want to be a multimillionaire, but I don't know how to get there. Well, how to get there is first decide that you're going to become a multimillionaire, and nothing less than that will do. That way, your view of the world changes. You see opportunities you'd never see before. Because if you don't have that desire, why would you even look for an opportunity? When it comes by, you don't even recognize it. So that decision is so important. And I think a lot of people think they confuse decision-making with goal setting. And to me,
yes.
I don't set goals. If I decide I'm going to write a book or something, I make a decision I'm going to write a book and I get on with it. But I don't set goals like I write down my 5-year plan and my 1-year plan and, that type of thing, or create a vision board. It's okay if you do, but I don't. When I decide to do something, I don't need to write it down. I'm going to remember it.
Right,
so
right.
To me, it's just, again, it's almost like an escape route that you got to spend time setting your goals. No, make a decision, move forward. So
write a business plan and spend 10 months evaluating the business plan and the market and trying to figure out and decide your way around every possible problem you can think your way out of, or every possible fear you can possibly imagine. And then you don't do anything because you never made the decision to actually do it.
You made a key point there.
Just keep going, right?
So anyway, that's so critical. And then I think your goals are the incremental steps that take you where you want to go. The decision you've made, the goals are the steps to get there. If I make a decision to write a book, I'm going to go, well, how many chapters? Well, 12. Okay, I'm going to write 1 chapter a day or whatever it is, So that's so important because it's a foundation for everything. And I don't care if it's making money or losing weight or getting your body fit or having a better relationship, whatever it is, that has to be firm.
Yeah,
And
those are such powerful things because now you're enabling yourself to be empowered, not victimized by your decision or the things around you that might influence your ability or inability to actually make that occur. And as you know, you wake up, you get up, you move up, you pray up, you get out. All of a sudden, the world hits you, the face hits you, the wife hits you, the job hits you, the situation at work, the kids, the phone call, hey, your dad died. I mean, there are just like boom, 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 things that are going to constantly stop that decision from moving forward. Isn't that true?
it's true. And I'll give you a quick story, though. When I first started in business, my first business venture was joining a direct sales company when I was a youngster. And I didn't know anything about selling anything. So the fellow that recruited me into this company, he said, your job is talking to people. He said, if you talk a little, you learn a little. If you talk a lot, you learn a lot. I said, how much is a lot? He said, 10 a day. I said, I'll do 10. So I quit my job, went out, started talking to 10 people a day. At the end of the year, I had spoken to over 3,650 people, and I got one sale.
Only one.
Only one. And I'm standing.
Yeah, but I mean, some people might think that's a win, though. You
Well,
did get a
actually,
sale.
it was, but it
Yeah,
didn't look like it at the time. My ratio was not
right.
that
Sure.
great,
No doubt about it.
I
Yeah,
was
there's a
look-
lot
I
of
wasn't
time
looking-
involved in that.
Yeah. So I was standing, I'll never forget, I was standing in my kitchen looking out the window and I'm going, what am I going to do? Both of my cars had been repoed. My home had been foreclosed. I had a notice from the sheriff that said, you got to be out in 5 days. My furniture had been
Wow.
repoed. I had a wife and
Your
a child.
furniture got that's a new one. I hadn't heard about the furniture repo
No, well,
before.
I had
That's
a lien
brutal.
against it. It was mortgaged, And so I reach in my pocket and all the money I had was 15 cents and I had no food in the house. And I don't have time to tell the whole story, but that one sale that I made, I carried a five-gallon container of carpet shampoo back to this guy. I walked 3 miles in the Oklahoma heat to deliver this, and I didn't even know if he was going to buy it. That was the one client that I had from 6 months earlier. That turned into $500,000 in income for me. And it started out that day with $300 a week, a vehicle to drive, a 3-bedroom furnished apartment. Everything I needed was given to me or presented to me. And that ended up being a long-term relationship that actually earned me millions of dollars over time. And somebody showed up from the direct sales company and sat with me for two hours in my floor, actually, and taught me what I was doing wrong and what I needed to be doing. And that business took off at the same time. So I went from 15 cents to millionaire in 1 year.
Wow.
And I look back on it, and I mean, I stood there looking out thinking, should I go back to the factory? I got to have food for the family. I don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden I'm going, nope, I am not going to quit. And I didn't know what was next, but I totally believe that that's what took me there, that I refused to give up.
That's a powerful decision, a powerful moment. I think some of us maybe get to those positions in life, but either through our experiences, people around us or others, we don't feel empowered. We can't make that decision. In that moment, fear takes over judgment and course of action. And in your case, it was double down on the decision. I see the opportunity. I'm not going to quit, which is a big moment, a big why in the road. What was the other major, just pure stubbornness, or what were the major factors that made you just say, no, I'm not going back, I'm going forward?
Partially inspiration and desperation.
Inspiration and
I knew I could get my job
desperation.
back at the factory, but that wasn't going to save anything. I was going to be homeless. And I saw other people making the money that I wanted to make. So I knew it was real. I knew I could do it. I just was missing something, So
That's so well said. So many people are not missing opportunities. They're missing inspiration for the opportunities that are being presented for themselves to see beyond their current position.
And we all have blind spots. We don't
absolutely,
see some of the things that we believe about ourselves. And
that's right.
Part of my struggle initially might have been my belief in myself. I'm a factory worker, a high school dropout. What do I know? I pick cotton, I pump gas. That was it. So anyway, from decision, the next step is action. And maybe you have to have a business plan for some type of businesses, but your typical entrepreneur probably doesn't have that. But I'm just look at what you can do today. Even if you have to plan some things, even if you have to have a website or whatever, look at what can you do today that's going to move you forward and closer to your objective that you've decided to have.
Yeah, I call it taking 3 steps forward to your goal. Every 3 steps, you can look back. It's just far enough to see where you've been. But every 3 steps you take is moving you towards that goal. So at some point, you're a mile down the road, you're 5,280, feet down the road eventually. But if you start and see that road all the way a mile down there, you're going to feel very overwhelmed, aren't you?
You are. And people, I think a lot of people, not everybody, fear holds them back. And so they're getting ready to get going. Because there is some fear involved. You start a new business, you've invested money and time and all of this into it. There's got to be a little bit of, is this going to work? I mean, maybe you're determined, but at the same time, you've got that little inkling of fear. But, to me, that's a made up story. Fear's not real. No fears are real. Not even a bear chasing you through the woods is real. I mean, the bear may be real, but the fear's not real because you made it up. You made up
That
what
is
the
very
bear's going to
true.
do to you when he catches you, but you don't know.
Yeah. You don't walk in the woods with every fear of the bear. You'd never go in the woods. The fear
Exactly.
isn't recognized until the bear actually starts chasing you.
Exactly. So then the next step to accomplishing anything you want in life is you've got to be willing to experience a little bit of pain. Was it painful for me to get rejected over 3,650 times? Yes, that was painful. But you know what? People ask me today, how do you handle rejection? I said, I've already done that. I don't have to do it again. So there's pain involved
That's
in
true.
changing because
That's very true.
every life level, every income level requires a different you. You have to change something about you. And you've got to be willing to step out of that comfort zone. But we always weigh out the pain of changing. Here's the pain of changing, and over here is the pain of staying where we are. And we love sitting on the sofa eating potato chips and watching TV, but we want to lose 100 pounds. So we weigh out those two and say, that's going to be hard losing 100 pounds, but I love those chips. So we set our New Year's resolution to lose 100 pounds, but 2 weeks later, we're eating the chips and setting on a giant carbohydrate. So that's a simple definition of it, but it's the same with anything we're doing. I mean, when I made that kind of money initially, it scared me to death. I mean, I would take checks into my bank and I thought they would think I was stealing it or something, even though it was a check I'm depositing, because I'd never made that kind of
Right.
money before, so
Sure.
it's uncomfortable. But, my banker turned me down for the money I needed to borrow to start in that direct sales company because I only had $9 in the bank at the time. But by the end of that year, he was calling me Mr. Britt when I come in the door.
Probably trying to get you to borrow tens of
Well,
thousands of dollars
changed.
at that point. Yeah,
Yeah.
here's all your money, sir. Here's all your money.
First time he called me Mr. Britt, I look around to see if my dad was there.
Right? Well, it is true. People don't loan people without money. They like to loan to people
You're
with
right.
money, right?
Yeah. So that's the next step, but you've got to be willing to endure that. Just, step aside, move forward, look at it for what it really is. There's obstacles always in the way. If you're on the earth and you don't have problems, you probably don't have a pulse because it's just a part of life. It's a part of business. In fact, business is solving problems. So when you're faced with a problem or a challenge, look at it for what it is and move past it. It's just, you just discovered another way that it wouldn't work maybe. So, and then the next part of it is, I discovered this many, many years ago, probably 35 years ago or so. A friend of mine and I used to read the same books and then we would converse, get on the phone, talk about them and kind of see each other's view about what we just read. So one day he's called me about this book and we talked for about an hour. And at the end of it, he said, "Hey, Jim," he said, "do you know what the word resourceful means?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe using your imagination or being more productive, something like that." I said, "I don't know why." And he said, "Oh, it's just an interesting word." And I thought, I guess so. And we hung up. Later that evening, I was driving home and I could not get that word out of my brain. It was just over and over and over, resourceful. And so I get home and I go to the dictionary. We didn't have internet, so 35 years ago. And so go to the dictionary, I look it up. Resourceful is defined as once again full of source. I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting, depending on what you think source is. So I go and look up that keyword. I look up source, and it's defined as where all things originate. And I went, wow, all things originate. And again, depending on what you think source is. So I kept looking for another definition of source. I thought there's got to be another definition. I wanted to find something more specific even. And it took me about a year and a half or so. And I was in England, a small town, walking down the sidewalk, just relaxing for the day. And I look up and I see a sign that said antique bookstore. And it was their back door. And I'm always intrigued by old books. So I walked in and there was a dictionary like a foot thick and looked old and tattered. I don't know when it was published, but it had a sign on it that said, "Do not open, please." or please do not open, one or the other. And I thought that would meant people in the UK. So it was okay for me to open it, but I was prepared to buy it if I had to, if I tore it up or something. So I opened it up and looked up the word source. And it had some of the same things I'd seen before, but one definition popped out at me: source, love. I went, wow, once again, full of love. I thought, what does that mean? I thought, well, in life, when we decide we're going to do something, it creates a passion for that. We basically fall in love with that. And the only other option is to fall in fear with it. And so I'm thinking, wow, that's powerful. Resourceful is once again full of love. So you fall in love where all things originate. And then I thought, wait a minute, there's a flaw in that. If all things originate in love, where does fear come from? And I thought about it for maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes, and I'm going, oh, I get it. We fall in love with fear. We actually fall in love. We create fear out of love. We create hardships. We create these things because we fall in love where all things originate. It doesn't say some things. It doesn't say good things. It said all things. So it's proof that the human being can actually create because we create our own fears. Amazing, isn't it? We're afraid of our own thoughts, of what we create.
Well, yes and no. I mean, at the same time, it is an epiphany to most who get to that point. At the same time, it's sort of a logical, common sense conclusion to all the fears we have rumbling around in our mind that lie to ourselves, or we listen to others who lie to us, and eventually we take those on as ourselves, even as our own fears, even if they're not true or they're not even relevant to us. We take them on, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you look at the human mind and what we do. I mean, some people think, thoughts are going to change. You change your thoughts and it changes you. But we have millions of thoughts. I mean, we have thousands of thoughts every day, but it's the one that you focus on and make real is what really has an effect on us. It's not all the other passing thoughts. I can think, I hope I don't fall out of the car driving down the road. Well, it's a passing thought. I'm not focused on that, So, but we do have those thoughts. And then the last topic here is something that I've been using for many, many years. I call it the power of letting go. You take a look at a child. Their essence is happiness, bubbly, having fun. And we were all that way at some point. And then we get programmed out of happiness and fun as we get older. We get more serious. We get, and then we're all searching for happiness. Isn't that interesting? That's our natural state and we're searching
Naturally.
for it. So we're searching in the wrong place. We're pursuing happiness, where if we just learn to let go of the things that make you unhappy, then you'll get back to your natural state. And also when you decide on something that you're going to fall in love with and start pursuing, a project or making money or whatever it is, when you're confronted with an issue, a problem or a challenge, you learn to let go of several things, but the need to control the outcome. Let go of the need to control. Or, in a relationship, let's say two people are arguing. The question is who wins in an argument? And the answer is nobody. You both lose. So why argue?
That's so true.
Because you
Just
want to
talk
be
to
right.
your wife or your significant other about that and see who defines the win of that argument. You're
Well,
going
I
to get
caught
two different
myself
answers.
one time years back with my wife and I, and I'll never forget it because we almost got into a heated argument. We were like in the beginning of it, and I caught it, and I said, wait a minute. I said, you know what? I love you too much to have this type of conversation. And it just stopped everything right there. And we had a normal conversation. And she tells her friends,
Wow, the power of words, right? I mean, just well-placed timed words.
yeah, so powerful. But, letting go, God, we've all had things happen to us in the past, but, it's not happening now unless you bring that past into the present. So that's where letting go comes in. I had a woman in a class one time, we were talking about success and financial success, and she said, well, I can never be successful. And I said, why? She was maybe 45 years old. She said, well, my father, she said, he verbally abused me my whole life until I left home. He just programmed it in. He said he hated me for some reason. He told me I'd never measure up to my siblings. I'd never amount to anything when I grow up. And she said, I don't know why. She said, but that's really the reason. I just I can't be successful. I said, so he verbally abused you? She said, yes. I said, where's your father now? She said, well, he died 10 years ago. I said, well, who's abusing you now? She said, I don't understand the question. I said, well, think about it for a little bit. And I went around to the room and came back in a little bit. Said, did you come up with the answer? She said, no. And third time, she said, no. Fourth time, she said, you mean I'm abusing me? And I said, I don't know. What do you think? I
Yeah.
said, I don't know. So the next
Right.
time I came by, I didn't even say a word. I just walked by her and she says, "Oh my God." She said, "I'm keeping his legacy alive. I'm abusing me." And then we worked with her for a little bit on letting that go
Wow.
because we hang on to stuff thinking it's going to protect us in some way. We hang on to
Yeah.
a bad relationship that split up in a divorce, and now we won't open
That's
our
right.
heart to somebody else until they prove themselves.
That's
You're going
right.
to end up with the same type of person again. You know, you got
You
to
go
be
around carrying that baggage. It's something I was telling
exactly.
my 14-year-old earlier because she ran into a bit of a problem with one of the homeschool kids. Believe it or not, even in homeschooling, you're not immune to issues with inner relationships and 14-year-olds,
Yeah.
especially girls. And so she ran into the similar kind of problem. And, she was carrying that baggage for a day. And I said, sweetheart, that happened yesterday. Today's your second day. Today's your day to get over that. So you don't carry that baggage into tomorrow. If you carry that into tomorrow, you're going to now make it a badge of honor. You're going to make that luggage the center focus of your conversation, your topic, and really the only reason you're going to do that is for self-centered interest, for likes, for someone else to say, "Woe is me," or "Poor you," or "Poor person for having this other person mentally abuse you." And it's so hard to build that out of our character,
It
and to
is.
build that out as an ingrained honor badge we wear as so many times. And you hear people get on and they tell their stories and things, and they bring that past up as though it's still real. And some will say, well, you're not, appreciating the concern of the issue, or the, how sensitive that topic was, or how hurtful it is. And I will say, well, I mean, we've all been betrayed, haven't we?
Hmm.
To some level,
Yeah,
we've all been
absolutely.
extremely hurt, cheated on, lied to. The question is, why does somebody use that as a stepping stone to their opportunity? And why do other people stand on that stone and don't get off like they're playing King of the Hill?
Yeah.
Why do you think people do that, Jim?
You're
Why do they
right.
stand on that stone and just stand there and entrench themselves?
Yeah. My philosophy is let go of all things over which you have no control. And do you have control of that past? Well, the only control you have is to bring it into the future or to let it go. And if it was an emotional experience, it's easy to tap into it. And if you can, and that becomes one of your blind spots, by the way, that stops you, that acts like an anchor that keeps you stuck. So, and people say, well, it's hard to let go. Go, no,
Well,
it's
sure
not
it
hard
is.
to let go. If I'm holding this mouse in my hand, does that mean I have to hold it in my hand the rest of my life? And the answer is no. I can lay it down.
Right.
So
But can't it be difficult if it's part of our self identity? If that's who we identify now, doesn't that make it more difficult to let go of that?
yeah, it does. But I do a little demonstration occasionally in a class, and I'll take a nice wine glass and I'll pour a sparkling water in it. I'll say, "This is you as a child. What does that represent?" And they'll see somebody will say bubbly, happy, excited, that type of thing, because all the water is bubbling. And then I take a little bit of black oil and I pour that on a little bit at a time. And I said, this is how you get programmed and the input that you have and, things you believe about yourself. And so they got this gunky oil about an inch over the bubbly stuff. And then I take a handful of glitter and I put that on the top. And I say, so that's who you are. This is who you think you are. And this is who you want others to think you are. And it's so true that we're so afraid to be ourselves because of what's happened in the past. We think people won't accept us. And, so we walk around needing acceptance all the time. So we make up stuff about who we are and what we have or whatever, to get more attention. The human mind is interesting, but man, if you want to get rid of anxiety and stress, let go of things over which you have no control. That causes pretty much all of it.
Yeah, it really is that easy. And I know we want to make it more difficult. Literally, we want to make it more difficult. And as a father leading 4 children who are in the stages of development and personal awareness and starting to recognize who they are as young women and moving into the stages of changes that are going to be very dramatic for them as they become more independent, it's one of the things I constantly try to focus on is their self-preservation mode, their ability to kind of internalize themselves and who they are, and then bring that presence into the world as a force for good, while not letting others' opinions of them take that down a level.
Hmm.
Now, it's not about pride and arrogance, and it certainly isn't about ego. It's about humility, but in self-confidence. It's what my mentor calls being a benevolent alpha. And in that way, you have the capability of still being your strong personal self, not bringing that baggage along, but still being benevolent to those who may be still in that process, as you have explained, and are working through that process and just need a little time to process the reality of their situation so they can get past it, which is very difficult for some folks to do because they just don't know what to do without it.
Yeah. No, they develop that core belief about themselves, and it's like a self-reinforcing addictive cycle. It literally becomes addictive, and we try to break out. We want something more. We're aware that we have a problem, but we're not aware of the solution. And the solution is to discover what that core belief is and take the emotional charge off of it so it becomes like a file on your hard drive instead of in your face every day.
It reminds me of that little video where the lady comes in and she's complaining about all her past. Was it Bob Newhart, and he was sitting at the desk. Have you seen that?
No.
And she's like, you can get the 5-minute or the 15-minute. Would you like? And she's like, well, I'd like the 5-minute. And then his answer to her problems was just stop it. Like, just stop it. That was the whole advice. He just told her repeatedly, just stop it. And she's like, well, you mean I stop it? I don't do it anymore? And he's like, yeah, you just stop it. It's the funniest thing on YouTube. You should go check it out for folks who are listening to this, because that's exactly what Jim is saying. Just stop it. I'd be like, she's like, what if I talk about, what am I going to do? I mean, this is like, and he's like, you just stop it. And it just really can be that simple. It really can.
It is. And I'll give the listeners here a way to solve any problem fairly quickly. Almost every object, man-made or nature-made, has the answer for you. If you look at a tree outside, is a good example. The tree's is sturdy. It's got a trunk. You can't push it. It's sturdy. It's solid, standing firm, got the roots planted. But up above, there's leaves and they're blowing in the wind, just flowing. So to me, I look at a tree, I'm thinking, okay, make a firm decision and go with the flow. You can solve your problem. You can open a page to a magazine, any kind of magazine. And I guarantee if you look hard enough on one single page, you'll find a solution to your problem. If you're really open to finding it. It might be a word that pops out. It might be a sentence you're reading. It might be a headline. There's so many ways to solve problems. We just, we get caught up in them and don't look for the solutions.
Well, guys, if you're wondering if Jim knows what he's talking about, you should understand this man mentored for 10 years with the late, great Jim Rohn. He helped launch Tony Robbins' career. He's got multiple books published, 15 if I at last check, a number of bestsellers. He's working on one called Crack the Code right now, which I guess you guys could check out on Amazon if you would go and take a look at that. And you can go over to Jim Britt, BRITT.com, and check him out. I would encourage, if you got any inspiration, any ideas, any concepts, and if you're on the verge of just stopping it, we would encourage you today, I'm sure both of us, to just stop whatever it is that's holding you back. Stop thinking negatively. Stop pulling up your past as a badge of honor and beating people over the head with it like a bat as some sort of entitlement or self-justification, and get out there and just take these traits and use them today. As Jim has said, it's a very helpful thing. And hopefully you guys are picking up on this with the really cool background noise that's coming in behind me. But Jim, any final words of advice we should leave everybody with today?
Well, one thing, and I use this all the time, become self-observant. That's more than becoming self-aware. Self-observant is watching yourself do things, catching yourself in the middle of it. And once you've decided what you want in any area of your life, then from that point forward, become observant and ask yourself, is this action I'm taking right now moving me in the direction I want to go, or is it taking me away from it? Success at anything really boils down to that simple.
It's fantastic. It's 50 years of experience in about 30 seconds, folks. I hope you picked up on that. Jim, thank you so much for coming on today and honoring me with your presence on the call and just sharing some amazing conversation today.
My pleasure, Neil. Thank you so much.